4 Phantom jets from the Alabama Air National Guard and a band playing the national anthem opened the air show, and for more than an hour and a half, all eyes were glued skyward. Young and old, civilians and those in the military watched as 5 different pilots took their crafts into loops, rolls, spins, and dives. First, there was Tom Boswell of Elmore County flying the Ag Cat, a versatile crop duster. Then it was Bob Abernathy's turn in the sky. The 20-year veteran of commercial aviation still flies for Eastern Airlines, but his hobby is aerobatics in his T-34. Many people were surprised to find a man who calls himself the Flying Mayor, and that's what he does. Bird Maples of Milton, Florida, says when you're flying upside down, you think about nothing else but flying. Not all of the acts were straight aerobatics. There was even a little fun as the Keystone Cops chased a plane piloted by an escapee. Actually, the plane seemed to be chasing the police rather than the other way around. Then it was time for Greer Paramore and his pit special. Paramore is a recent winner of the Canadian Aerobatic Championships, and it's clear to see why. Flying at nearly 200 miles an hour, the modified plane roared through loops and rolls, along with a number of steep dives. In the end, the crowd was very impressed. This is the 3rd annual air show, and in the past, the participants, both those in the air and on the ground, donated their time. According to General Coordinator Bill Durley, money raised from the 2-day event will go towards building a home for parentless children in Elmore County. Durley expects a large crowd tomorrow at the airport to help a worthwhile cause and see a fine display of aerial skill. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
George, what you doing these days? You're not kicking field goals.
Well, I'm playing little golf tournaments around the country. I do some PR work, do some commercials, and do some public speaking around the country, and play a lot of golf and a lot of charity tournaments around the country and enjoy it.
You ought to get asked to do some coaching every once in a while. You ever consider it?
Every once in a while I think about it, but then I count my blessings that I'm not, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
This kind of old home week down here, Bear Bryant, a lot
sure
of
is.
You knew at Kentucky?
Oh, absolutely. I visited with the Bear last night, yesterday afternoon. A great man, Charlie McClendon, and I played together at Kentucky back in 48, 47.
I play a lot of tournaments. There's the old thing about an actor that he never turns down a free meal or a free round of golf. So,
well, we're going to keep it free so you'll keep coming
right.
back. Welcome back to Montgomery. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Good luck in the tournament.
Thank you. Any birdies, Coach?
I teammated a couple, but I didn't contribute.
You got Lou King, the Amana man. He's next to a touring pro, isn't he?
He's not playing well today as he did the last time I played with him. I think he's just getting warmed up. Maybe I've been hitting first. That might have affected him because I'm real short all the time.
Maybe he'll give you one of those wide brim hats.
I think he will.
You having a good time?
Oh, delightful and wonderful to be here. And for a cause like this, what makes it even better, the weather's so pretty today. I mean, no sun.
Hope you have a good round.
Thank you. No way, though.
Welcome back to Montgomery, first of all.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
You have so many awards. Do you have a warehouse to keep all these awards in?
No, I have a lot of walls, though.
Just cover the walls.
Well, I put them all up.
I see. Last year when you were here, we were talking a bit about all the instruments you play, and it's occurred to me, do you keep adding on? Are you always trying to learn more
No,
instruments?
I'm at the point I'm trying to keep up. There was a time that I added on, and now it's just trying to do what the best I can do with is least as I do it with, you know.
Well, you've been apparently practicing a lot with the violin. You did a splendid job last night on...
Thank you. I like to show off when I get in front of all those legitimate violin players.
I was wondering, you know, when your contract comes up for renegotiation, do you want us to send you a tape of all these ladies following you around this golf course?
I tell you something. Alabama, Montgomery in particular, I don't know what it is. I should bring it all back to Los Angeles. I might be able to get a lot more money on my show.
You should, my goodness.
Because this is incredible. And every time I come here, it's like this. And I'm very flattered. I go back to being a bum back in L.A. again, but here it's nice, so I appreciate it very much.
Oh. Is he doing some stuff? No. Oh. He's going to get bland in here? Okay.
way, Danny.
If you saw the Burt Reynolds movie Gator a few years ago, remember the very tall guy who drove the Cadillac with his head stuck out the top of the roof? His name is Bill Engesser. Bill is a 20-year veteran of show business. He got his start in it for one reason, his size. Bill is 7 feet 2 inches tall. He played college basketball for the University of Southern California in the late 50s and got his start through press clippings about his basketball exploits.
Of course, USC is located right next to Hollywood, so when we'd have a good basketball game or something and get a little publicity, why, we'd get in the Los Angeles Times, and then the casting directors would notice it, and when they needed a tall drink of water, why, they'd call me.
What's the first job you had?
Truth or Consequences with Ed Barker, is it?
Bob Barker.
Bob Barker, yeah. Back, oh shoot, that was in 1957. Played they had 3 of us in booths, you know, and she was trying to guess which was which. One of them was a star, and of course if she guessed wrong, why then the 7-foot guy would come out or somebody else would come out, and of course I didn't really enjoy it because I was kind of one of the consequences, you know. So, but anyway, it was my debut into the business anyway.
The people Bill Engesser has worked with reads like a who's who of Hollywood.
Some of the greatest people that I met, I guess, would be Red Skelton, Danny Kaye, Dick Van Dyke is a dynamite guy, Red Fox is a super human being, Lola Falana is a sweet gal, and so talented it's unreal, and of course Burt Reynolds is as nice a person as you'll ever meet.
Now, you were in Gator. Tell us something about being in that movie.
Well, I played the part of a dope, more or less, that doesn't really excite me a whole lot, but it was a lot of fun to make the movie and meet people like Lauren Hutton, she's a super gal, interesting, travels a great deal, thinks a lot, has a lot to say about what she thinks, and she's dynamite. She's really dynamite. Jerry Reed Jerry taught me how to fish.
Oh, really?
Yep, he sure did. We had about 4 days off one time, and we weren't allowed to leave the town because of insurance.
Yeah.
And of course, I lived in Los Angeles at the time, and this is in Savannah, Georgia, so well, we had to kill about 4 or 5 days. So he said, "Do you fish?" And I said, "Well, really, I don't." He said, "Well, come on, I'm going to show you how to fish." So he takes me over to the sporting goods store, and he has me buy $100 and some worth of tackle I don't know anything about, and we went out and we fished for about 4 days and had a lot of fun, and he loves to fish.
Bill has played in comedies, drama, musicals, and he's done some offbeat roles, including playing a Bigfoot-type creature, which sort of stuck as a nickname. What's he doing now? Bill co-owns a junkyard auto parts business in Birmingham called, appropriately enough, Bigfoot's Auto Parts. He became familiar with the South while working as a salesman a few years ago. He's quit show business several times, primarily because of the parts he's offered. Playing hulking dummies is totally opposite of the real Bill Engesser.
A fella told me one time, he said, "You know why you haven't really made it in show business?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, it's because you're not willing to starve to do it." And I said, "Well, that's true, I'm not." And but secondly, I think really most of the parts that I played, I didn't enjoy, I wasn't proud of. In other words, no matter how well I might have done them or could have done them, just the background I came from or the way I am or whatever, I just don't enjoy playing a thug, especially a thug that's sort of a dope, which most of them, normally they are. I guess you could say that if I was a true actor, it wouldn't make any difference to me. I felt that I was, but I don't know. It just seemed that was always the case. And if you're playing a big dummy, a lot of times you're treated like a big dummy when you're off camera too. And this hurt me inside, and I didn't like it.
Does he ever think about getting back into acting? He's been offered a few parts recently, including a role in the latest Marty Feldman movie, the last remake of Beau Geste, but he turned them down for different reasons. Bill says if someone offers a part that would allow him a chance to bring more dimension to the character, he'll give it some serious consideration. But in the meantime, he's happy, being the biggest auto parts dealer in the state. Michael Jones reporting for Alabama Illustrated.
The Gershwin-Haywood masterpiece centers on the powerful triangle of the crippled black beggar Porgy, the brutish stevedore Crown, and the beautiful Bess. The story reveals how Bess is seduced away from Porgy, first by Crown, who Porgy later kills, and then by the colorful, jiving, sporting life. Todd Duncan portrayed Porgy 44 years ago in the original production. Over the years, he has watched many performers recreate that role. Duncan says he still regards the opera as his baby.
I can't help but go back 44 years when I created the role, and George Gershwin was right there, Ira Gershwin, and I was at the beginning and the morning of it, and of course I know every note. The last 44 pages of the opera were written for my voice, particularly, so that it's like a little baby to me. And naturally, one wants to cradle his own baby. One wants to take care of it. And that's what I feel. And then if I find that these young singers are not being true to the composer and to the poet, the lyricist, I'm rather angry.
I was about to ask, are you very hard on them?
Well, I'm not hard, but they must be good musicians, and they must be true to the poet and true to the composer. The work has lasted because it is a fine work, and I don't think it should be desecrated or diverted or perverted in any way.
From the looks of this production, how are things going?
It sounded very, very good, very authentic today. I'm very pleased.
Right.
Continuing the role of Porgy in this production is Benjamin Matthews.
Porgy's a very interesting man. He's a cripple and a beggar. He begs for a living. He's quite self-capable, a very strong man, physically and psychologically. Very interesting man. He's considered smart, and many times he's even smart enough to play dumb in order to get accomplished what he would like to accomplish. It's a role that I enjoy playing very much. It's easy to relate to, easy for me to relate to. Of course, I've never been a cripple or a beggar, but I've seen it. I've been close enough to it to understand it and portray the part very, very well, I think.
Is this your first time playing the part of Porgy?
Oh, no. This was, when I finish with these 5 performances, it will mark about my 50th performance.
So you're very familiar.
I'm very familiar with it, yes. Yes, I played it in this country and in Europe.
How does it feel coming back to Alabama, your native home state, to do an opera?
It's a very good feeling. Very good feeling. I've done 2 recitals in Alabama, in Mobile. And other than that, I have not sung in Alabama.
Do you feel that people all over the world are receptive to Porgy and Bess, or does it appeal to all audiences? And if so, why?
Oh, it appeals to, I think it appeals to audiences in Europe more so than here. For instance, last time I sang it in performance, we did 26 performances, and we were opening in October 3rd we opened, and we closed the 17th of December. And when we opened on October 3rd, 26 performances were sold out. You couldn't get a ticket. Standing room.
Carol Bryce, a voice teacher at the University of Oklahoma, sings the role of Mariah.
Well, Mariah is like the matriarch of Catfish Row, and she's the one who is very strong, and she kind of dictates what everybody's going to do. She has a little shop in which she sells fish, and she, when people want a cup of coffee, they come there and so forth. And her gumbo is famous, I'm sure, and because, of course, it's in that section of the country where fish is very fresh and very good. And she, at one point, her main scene is one in which she tells off sporting life, because, of course, he is selling dope all around, and she very much objects to this, and particularly when he comes on her premises and is selling it. And she really tells him off in a piece called Strutting Style, which is like Sprechstimme. It is not a song piece, it is spoken, but with the rhythmic background of the orchestra going on. Very strong piece.
Jim Randolph sings the role of Crown. The native Alabamian is a successful Las Vegas entertainer who sometimes finds it difficult to turn off the act.
How did a boy from Bruton, Alabama, grow up and become knighted in Liberia?
Well, I had decided a long time ago when I was in Bruton, Alabama, where I was born. Population there from Escambia County, 5,000 people. And population always remains the same, because every time a girl has a baby, that fellow leaves town. So I left town, and I went to New York City. And I was asked by the late President Tubman to come over to spend a weekend in Monrovia, Liberia, and to sing for him personally. And after having sang for the president, he asked me if I would stay and visit the schools and spend some time with the people of Liberia. And I did this, and I wound up staying over there for 10 days and having a wonderful experience with the Liberian people. And when I got back to New York, I was very much surprised that I'd gotten this telegram from the President Tubman that the Ambassador Peel from Washington was going to knight me, and that knighthood was to be bestowed upon me. So I was surprised. I really was.
So, now, as a knight, what do you do?
Well, as a knight, I carouse around in the nighttime, you see, and the next day you see me, you'll be looking at a black knight. See.
This is Janet May reporting for Alabama Illustrated.
For the past year, the Montgomery Police Academy has been provided with a stress management course. Those who are training to be policemen and women take, as a regular part of their curriculum at the Academy, this course designed to aid them in stressful situations. Lynn Daly, a professional advisor to the association, teaches the class. He explained that the cadets do open up in a personal way to discuss the problems of stress.
Like water to a fish, it's all around us, and it touches every element of their life. So when we have female cadets and we have the racial mixture in the class, the issues, for example, of racism and racial prejudice and sexism and sexual prejudice are issues which just bubble to the surface and become identifiable stressors that people have to live with. We're dealing with life and with real issues, so it's not hard to get them to participate openly and directly. And they even become willing to confront each other so that they can, in turn, with their feedback, make each other be the best professionals they can be. I think this class and the Academy is an excellent experience for preparing well-qualified super police officers. I'm proud of the association I have with it and of the people who come out of it. I think we're going to have a better and better police force in years to come because of this kind of training.
What sort of classroom situation is this?
We come together and try and use exercises to help these young police officers get in touch with their experiences of stress. We try to have them think about some ideas related to signs of stress, sweaty palms, the way our breathing changes, the way it affects our lives in terms of changing our diet, our sleeping patterns. Try and get them to notice stress before it has the negative effect of turning into a long-term disease like hypertension or even diabetes, and even cancer has been identified as partially being caused by stress. Stress is a co-carcinogen. We want them to be able to deal with stress before it gets to that kind of level of illness. We have them talk about ideas. We have them actually plan out a way of dealing with the particular stressors in their life. We have a full set of forms that they use to analyze the process of getting in touch with the signals their body's sending them, seeing what kind of stressors pertain in their life, what their options are, what actions they want to commit themselves to, and then set some goals for managing stress. So we use all of those techniques, and we try to keep it as experiential as possible so they really are getting in touch with the experience of stress.
Well, one would normally think that a police officer would be in more stressful situations than anybody else.
The indications are definitely that that's true, Ivy. They have a higher incidence of divorce than the normal population. They have a higher incidence of the stress-related illnesses at lower age ranges than the normal population. And we know just by looking at their work that they have the startle to contend with, hours and hours of boredom interspersed by moments of sheer panic, danger, high-speed chases. They have the problems of sometimes a poor public image being levied on them, the stereotypes they have to deal with. They have pressures of home life where they have shift changes and schedules where they have to work holidays and weekends. The stresses on the family can be considerable, and they just add to the burdens of their normal workload. They have things like they start working a case and they never get to see the conclusion of it because the detectives may take over. A lot of elements of their work are very stress-producing. And when they have to contend with these things, the more tools we can give them to awaken their awareness and let them see options, the more able they are to handle it.
So this is a new crop of policemen and policewomen. Are you doing this with every group that comes through the police academy?
This is, I believe, the fourth class that we have worked with, and we are now a regular part of the curriculum. Of course, I represent the Montgomery Mental Health Association, and this is just one of many ways that the association is serving the community. And since May is Mental Health Month, we certainly want the people of the area to know this is one of the ways that this association touches the community in a very direct way, and we feel that this service will eventually touch everyone else. People, if they like what we're doing, can obviously support us by joining the Mental Health Association.
Public Service Commissioner Jim Folsom says he's drawn up a bill to be introduced in the state legislature that would provide elderly Alabamians with reduced electrical rates. The idea is known as lifeline rates. Folsom says the bill would mandate all power utility companies to reduce by 30% the amount charged on the first 500 kilowatts to all Alabamians who are 65 and older, regardless of income. Folsom projects that the cost of the program will run just over $12 million. To finance the program, Folsom's bill takes money from the state utility licensing tax, which Folsom says has increased by some 13% this year alone.
The state public utilities license tax is 44 cents on this for the increase. The total is $21.24 with your two taxes. With 30% per month discount would be roughly $6.37 to bring the average bill down to around $14.87.
Supporting the bill during its announcement were representatives of the Alabama League of Aging Citizens in full support of the bill. And expressing concern over the bill's limited coverage was Barney Abbott, member of the state board, Alabama Federation of the Blind.
Quite a few of them are on fixed income, limited income, SSI, small Social Security checks. They hardly have income enough to exist on, and yet you're making no provision, you're not even attempting to make any provision for relief for them.
Folsom says the present bill includes the elderly only, and when revenues make themselves available, the bill will be amended to include others such as the blind and the handicapped. Folsom says there are several legislators interested in sponsoring the bill, which reportedly will be introduced next week. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
The coordinator for the Alabama Caucus on Black Aged is E.P. Wallace. Beginning next week, Wallace will have another job. He is one of 2 congressional senior citizen interns who will accompany Senator Stewart to Washington. Wallace says he plans to tell congressmen of some problems senior citizens face.
I'm primarily interested in our older people, irrespective of race, creed, or color. When I say particularly interested in that, I'm interested in some job slots for them. You know, on the Social Security and the little welfare checks and things of that kind, they can barely live out of that. And we do happen to know that the Labor Department has billions of dollars that they're spending, and I personally don't feel that the senior citizens are being treated fairly.
Wallace's internship will last 12 days. The other Alabama senior citizen intern is a woman from Atmore. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
Play. But it seems strange to see some good golf swings out here on this thing. You guys doing any good? Anybody playing well?
Well, we're not doing too bad. You know, we're just out here having fun, and got a little Don Iverson have a little match with Mark Mike and Johnny Jacobs, and we're all level.
Oh, good. After winning 3 or 4 PGA championships, you have not played the tour last, what, year, 2 years?
Well, I've been about a year and a half now. I'll take 2 years off, and I think I'm going to go back next year and give it a try. And it was just, tour got a little drudgery for me, and I decided it would be better just to kind of get away from it for a while and see if I wanted to go back. And after a couple of years, I feel like I kind of want to now.
I can tell you this, a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old can take a shotgun and walk into a filling. We'd like to see some changes in the juvenile law to lower the juvenile age back to 16, to say that once a juvenile is certified as an adult for trial, that he is always certified. You don't have to certify him again. To say that a juvenile confession can be admitted into evidence just like an adult confession, enjoying the same types of protections, and that a juvenile probation officer not be allowed to do what's known as informally adjust a felony case involving a juvenile, which would mean just counsel with him and let him go. We think a judge should do that. We'd like to see the criminal code delayed until the law enforcement amendments are offered to it. We would like to see the equal opportunity in jury selection for the victims of crime. And right now, the person charged with a crime enjoys a 2-to-1 advantage in selecting a jury to try a criminal case. We think the victims of crime ought to have an equal opportunity in that selection process where they have 1 strike and the defendant has 1 strike.
This is the man police are looking for in connection with the shotgun slaying of Betty Jean Cook in Crenshaw County March 4th. Betty Jean Cook, according to people who knew her, was slightly retarded. Teachers say she dropped out of school while in junior high school about 4 years ago. Officials know that Cook roamed the streets of Montgomery, living from house to house and motel to motel. Investigators have been told that her parents didn't care where she slept or where she lived. It is known that Betty Jean Cook became involved in prostitution, sometime to get a place to sleep. Sources close to the investigation have learned that Cook was involved in prostitution, allegedly with the 2 men who are charged with her murder, and she may have refused to work for them, and that is believed to be the reason she was murdered.
The story of young Betty Jean Cook is a sad commentary on a lot of people. She was absent from school a lot. Other students in her class made fun of the way she dressed. Some said she smelled bad, and she apparently had no one at home to care for her or about her. This is a letter Betty Jean Cook wrote her favorite teacher shortly before she dropped out of school in 1974. It reads, "Dear Mrs. Thomas, I like you very much for a teacher. You are very nice and sweet and very pretty, and I like school, and I like the games we play. The things you give us is very nice. The clothes you wear are very pretty, and you have pretty hair. Let God be with you till you die." Betty Jean Cook was shot to death in Crenshaw County, Alabama on March 4th this year. That was the first that was heard from Betty Jean Cook from Mrs. Thomas, her favorite teacher. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Well, when we did leave, James, you know, we were going into a little bit of an unknown, which always happens at this in this minor league situation. We were going over to Knoxville, a club we hadn't seen, and but in the minor leagues in the past, I know that the White Sox have a history of pretty well stocking their minor league clubs with some experienced players and this and that, and so in that 4-game set over there, really they boxed us up pretty good the first 3 games, and then Freddie Holsworth come out and threw a spectacular game against them, and ended up we salvaged the 1 game 1-0 the last night in Knoxville, and then we got back into the known area a little bit, moving on to Charlotte, and did take the first 2 games of that series over there, and I was really quite disappointed that that series didn't go a little bit better.
Earlier in the session, a bill was proposed in the House by Representative Rick Manley. That bill would add 4 additional members to the Public Service Commission. A similar bill was also introduced in the Senate. The bill, prompted by Governor James, would give the governor power to appoint 2 additional associate commissioners, with one appointed by the lieutenant governor and another by the Speaker of the House. Legal Services of Alabama does not like the bill very much, and it's on the calendar in the Senate tomorrow. Executive Director Marvin H. Campbell termed the action on the part of Governor James a blatant exercise in political arrogance.
In my opinion, the effect of this bill will be to give the Alabama Power Company the votes it needs to gain the largest rate increase in the history of the state. If the bill continues to be railroaded through the legislature at its present speed, the new members will be appointed and will hear the case now before the PSC. The governor's appointees will decide whether the people will pay the largest rate increase in Alabama's history.
The other bill Legal Services is opposed to is one which they say will dramatically raise the legal rate of interest for consumer loans and installment sales contracts. On both matters, Legal Services questioned why the Senate committees reviewing the legislation never conducted public hearings. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Informed sources tell us that investigators are sifting through numerous loans that may be phony, and they're checking out collateral used to secure loans. We are told several persons were given loans on property that either didn't exist or was appraised far above the money lent, allegedly by Brock. One such transaction alleged by one source concerns property on the Montgomery's Eastern Bypass that is owned by 2 local attorneys. It is known by investigators that the property is valued at close to $70,000, but that Macon Brock is alleged to have made loans of more than $500,000 on the tract of land. According to an information we've been able to obtain, the landowners went to Brock and was loaned $70,000 on the property, and over a period of 6 months increased the amount by reappraising and allegedly inflating the value until the sum of $500,000 is now owed on the land. The loan company will lose that much if the landowners default on the loan. Investigators have also learned of one man who was the recipient of at least 12 loans from that firm. We are told at times loans were made to people to enable them to make payments on other loans held at the firm. Brock is charged with 12 counts of embezzlement. From other information made available to us, we are told a number of prominent local citizens were made loans by Macon Brock. It's alleged that some of them may be questionable. But we are told that when Brock was indicted, payments were prompt and many loans were paid off. One official close to the situation said Macon Brock's superiors used Brock's loan volume when trying to impress other company branch managers to make more loans and bring in more business. That was before his indictment. At this point, officials don't know how much the company stands to lose, but a conservative estimate is $5 million.
The investigation into the Brock dealings continues, with the Montgomery District Attorney's Office expected to make more indictments in the case. Macon Brock goes on trial April 25th here in Montgomery County. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
The Friday the 13th rains caused some of the worst flooding since 1961 in some areas, the worst in history in other parts of the state. As a result, the Federal Disaster Assistance Administration says it received a total of 2,954 applications for relief in the form of emergency food stamps, Small Business Administration loans, or any of a variety of types of assistance. The majority of that number was in the Selma area, where the most severe property damage occurred. 977 applications were reported there. On the low end of the range, only 83 persons applied for relief in the Montgomery area. During the 2 weeks following the floods, 16 disaster relief field offices were open. Now that they are closed, all requests are being handled out of an office in the basement of the federal building. Lee Kelo is the Southern Area Coordinator for the FDAA. He says his office is now concerned primarily with providing temporary housing for the flood victims.
If the Red Cross has already put them in a motel, they can only pick up this for, say, 5 or 6 days. We can pick it up for up to 30 days or until we've got them a little bit more permanent type housing. The temporary housing program is just that. It's a temporary housing program. But we will assist them later on into getting into a more permanent type housing, and preferably their own house, right back into their own house.
In an effort to notify as many victims as possible about the temporary housing program, Kelo says a team of field workers will be visiting the affected areas throughout next week. Kelo urged persons with any questions about the program to call the FDAA's toll-free number. That's 1-800-392-5695. Dave Rickey, WSFA TV News.
Before that day, blacks had no equal protection under the law. It was the final facing of laws that denied blacks basic constitutional rights. The Supreme Court faced that problem 25 years ago on May 17, 1954. Today in central Alabama at the University of Montevallo, an anniversary symposium was held to celebrate that historic document. Dr. Kenneth B. Clark wrote a legal brief that the Supreme Court reviewed before handing down that decision. The document outlined the effects on black children of segregated education. Today, Clark was a panelist at Montevallo. He looked back at the quality of education since the decision.
I think the Brown decision has been slowly improving the quality of education for minority children, and particularly in the southern states. The quality of education has not improved significantly in northern urban centers such as New York, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland. In fact, it seemed to me that in the 25 years since Brown, there's been a retrogression in the quality of education in northern urban centers, but an improvement in the quality of education in the southern region.
When this college was first built, it was called the Alabama Industrial School for White Girls. Today, panelist Kenneth B. Clark said that it is the only university in the entire United States that is holding a symposium to honor the Brown versus Board of Education decision. That should say something about the impact of the Brown decision, at least here in Alabama. From the campus of the University of Montevallo, this is Norman Lumpkin reporting for Channel 12 News.
Mrs. Allen's attorney, Richard Horn, listed a number of incidents which he said were reversible errors in the ethics law violation trial. Mrs. Allen's conviction came on charges related to the American Bank of Geneva, but Horn contends that evidence from other charges was used to prejudice that jury. Horn also contends that Montgomery County District Attorney Jimmy Evans manipulated the grand jury so as to prevent Florida financier E.A. Gregory from testifying, which forced the Geneva Bank case to trial earlier than the attorneys felt prepared for. The former state treasurer's attorney also alleges that Mrs. Allen's counsel during the trial, Billy Jordan, didn't provide competent assistance in court. Additionally, Horn contends the ethics panel probe of Mrs. Allen did not provide her due process of law.
With the evidence before the Court of Criminal Appeals, it's now up to the 5 members of that panel to decide whether there were any fallacies in the conviction of Mrs. Allen, which ultimately led to a 3-year prison term. If the conviction is upheld, it will mean that her attorney's next appeal could be to the U.S. Supreme Court. If the conviction is overturned, it's back to square one, with indictments and a trial ensuing. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
So Governor James wants to concentrate on kindergarten through 6th grade by dividing the state into 12 regions with basic skills improvement teams living in each region. Now these teams would be 8 people, 2 that are specialists in school management, 2 in reading, 2 in language arts, which is English, what you and I used to know it as, and 2 in arithmetic. They would go into each school and work with the teachers and the principals on methodology and classroom technique. It is not a tutoring program. And these people would be drawn from the best teachers and principals in each region. So they're not outsiders coming in to tell someone how to teach in school. They're people that are known in that area.
The House returned from its weekend recess with the general fund budget near the bottom of the calendar. The Rules Committee came up with a special order calendar which also contained a supplemental appropriations bill. The House decided to approve the special order, and the general fund came before the body. The lower chamber first considered committee amendments to the budget and passed them. Several House members attempted to amend the bill to give state employees a raise. In one particular case, House Speaker Joe McCorkadale came down from the Speaker's position, turned the reins of the House over to Speaker Pro Tem Rick Manley, and entered the debate in the pit, as it's often called. McCorkadale pointed out that the raises advocated would not apply to all state employees. He noted a recent survey which showed state employees receiving greater salaries than their counterparts in the private sector. After Ways and Means Chairman Walter Owens weeded out most of the other questions, the vote was taken, 70 yes and 25 no. Shortly after that, the House also approved a supplemental appropriations bill totaling almost $15 million. This money would help state agencies like Medicaid, Corrections, the legislature, and the Attorney General's office make it through the current fiscal year without running out of money. The governor's $1.2 billion education budget was resubmitted after modifications. The House Ways and Means Committee will begin work on that document Wednesday. Other legislation introduced included a bill by Senators Don Harrison of Montgomery and Ed Robertson of Northport, which would prohibit the carrying of firearms where beer or liquor is sold. The Alabama House made quick work of the general fund budget today, but still before that body, and looming larger and larger every day, is a record education budget. And after that, the governor's new constitution. There are only 25 legislative days left. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
In my opinion, it ruled that if the Justice Department thought the test that we're now using is not proper and they have a better idea, produce it.
So what are you going to do meanwhile?
That comes under the bailiwick of the City County Personnel Board. And
both of these projects, one that was held before the City Commission and one before the city polls work. In other words, no one came at the public hearing which was advertised. Here it is.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to speak, would you please be recognized?
We'll refer to the meal worked out. If somebody's going to talk about whether or not the $10 allows the council to set such a generally allows the councilmen and other officials. All right? Need a motion. Mr. President, I'm with you.
That there would be a bill due, the minimum bill that could possibly be achieved, which was $10 per foot. The balance of it, of the 27.
Willie Smith, the former Auburn 400-meter man, fervently hopes Juan Torino decides on the 400 meters. Willie, after a tremendous year last year, his senior year at Auburn, is now training in relative anonymity as he completes his degree. While his former teammates Harvey Glantz, James Walker, and Tony Easley attend meets week after week for Auburn, Willie must prepare without the cheers, without the publicity that makes the long hours of painful conditioning more bearable. At considerable personal sacrifice, Willie has arranged to make the trip to Los Angeles, hoping to run against Juan Torino. It is not a pipe dream. Willie Smith can beat him. Last year he led Juan Torino by 30 meters, 3/4 of the way through a race. He lost at the wire. He's confident he can hold him off this time. And Willie Smith needs the boost a win over Juan Torino would bring.
It's like a fame thing, really. It's something that everybody wants to do, but few people have the potential to do. And I don't know. I'd be kind of unwise to come this far and not really go ahead and try and just grab everything.
This will be a boost to you.
Yes, it will. Maybe I can get some publicity. Maybe I can get some
to help you along
media
the way,
behind me. Yeah, it's a long road.
Good
It's
luck,
coming
Willie.
to an end.
Good luck.
The decision to strike came in a Tuesday night mass meeting of some 800 city workers at the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge. This followed the Birmingham City Council's refusal to reverse a change of health insurance coverage from Blue Cross to the Birmingham-based Liberty National Life Insurance Company. Birmingham Mayor David Vann says employees will receive the same benefits under the new plan, but employees claim coverage won't be as good. The FOP's Job Action Committee chairman says current contracts call for negotiations with the unions before any insurance coverage changes can be made. Some 700 policemen are taking part in the work stoppage. They've been joined by 4,000 other city employees. This morning, Circuit Judge William Thompson ordered the striking police back to work, but the president of the FOP says he will not order the strikers to return.
Well, first, if they order me back to work, I cannot order these men back because they ordered me out.
Okay. What if your men refuse to obey a court order? Will you personally go back to work?
No.
Police department supervisory personnel are on the streets, covering the state's largest city. State troopers and National Guardsmen have been called in to assist. Still, crime has increased. This afternoon, a branch of the Birmingham Trust National Bank was robbed of almost $4,000. Birmingham firefighters have not gone on strike yet, but it's clear where their sentiments lie.
If it had just been not giving us a pay raise, there would be no strike. But what they've done and the way they did it is uncalled for.
The Birmingham Firefighters Union will hold the first of 2 strike votes tonight at 7:30. Another vote is scheduled for tomorrow night, and if they should decide to strike, they could begin as early as 9 o'clock tomorrow evening. Tonight, the Birmingham FOP will meet to discuss the latest developments in their strike. Meanwhile, the residents of Birmingham are wondering exactly how long the municipal employees' strike will continue. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News in Birmingham.
Last year, Charlotte Walters paid $200 for her restaurant's liquor license. Next year, she may have to pay $1,500 because the Alabama Alcoholic Beverage Control Board has raised liquor license fees 1,000%. Ms. Walters says the move will be especially hard on small restaurant owners.
Well, it's going to be a little bit of a hardship on us because we are a limited budget, small type business, and we'll have to cut corners here and there to make up for that. By that I mean we'll have to, the first thing you cut would be payroll. Somebody will have to get off an hour early. We may have to let an employee go, or things like that. You'll cut down on your inventory so that you don't have as much stock on hand as you would normally have.
Ms. Walters is pleased by the board's decision to stop requiring bars to serve liquor from miniature bottles. But she adds the money she'll save by buying liquor in large bottles will not offset the increase of her liquor license fee. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
The strike started at 6 a.m. It shut down all maintenance work for the authority's more than 3,000 public housing units. Pickets were placed at the administration building and at the maintenance shop headquarters. The men say they want recognition for their union, job classification, and other benefits. Spokesman Nelson Shields.
No classification on this job. If he tell you today he wants you to go dig a ditch, he probably wants you to do plumbing tomorrow, something like that. It's no classification. And this is one reason that we are striking this morning. We want these type of things on our job, such as equal benefits, equal opportunities. We want that.
J.C. Miller, housing administrator, rebutted each gripe. Miller says the jobs are classified and a retirement plan is in force for each employee. Miller added that the proper procedure for requesting union recognition has not been met, and it was the first the authority had heard of it at a meeting last night. How long the strike will last is unclear at this time. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News, reporting.
I'm very, very impressed with Air University, with Maxwell and Gunter. I had of course, I'm not unfamiliar with the activities either at Maxwell, all the schools and all the things they do, or Gunter. I've made many, many visits here to speak and to visit various organizations, but I'm most impressed with the facilities and with the people. I think they're doing a magnificent job for the Air Force in terms of non-commissioned officer, professional military education, and an officer professional military education. There are many innovative things that continue to go on here at Air University.
Found that the present system is more complicated due to the use of decal numbers for accounting purposes as well as the license number. And this deals with the way the system was implemented, not with the 5-year law.
That's Rufin Blaylock, an official of the Criminal Justice Department who uses tag sales receipts to aid in the enforcement of the present 5-year car tag system. Additionally, Blaylock says the state loses nearly $6 million annually because of Alabamians who don't buy validation stickers because they say police can't see them anyway. Blaylock says 2 to 3 times that amount is lost in city and county revenues due to the same reason. Revenue Department officials, however, say those figures are incorrect, alleging that Blaylock is inflating the numbers to try and take over the Revenue Department's motor vehicle registration operations.
Our need is for timely and accurate information. Our motivation is to bring to the motor vehicle process a quality and timeliness and level of competency that we brought to the picture driver's license in 1976. I would be most happy if Revenue could do that.
This is Representative Dwayne Lewis, who's one of a number of sponsors for a new version of the 5-year tag.
There's been a breakdown of communications all the way from the Department of Revenue to the prison system to the probate judges. No one has been cooperating.
Because of that alleged lack of coordination, these two contend that more is being lost than just money. More on that tomorrow night. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News. There have been many people who voiced opposition to the present 5-year car tag system. The loudest are the probate judges who must keep up with both the tag and validation sticker numbers, and the law enforcement officials who must look very closely at each tag to enforce the overall plan. Rufin Blaylock, who conducted a 3-month survey of the system at the request of the Lieutenant Governor, George McMillan, said the idea is good.
The 5-year tag was not a mistake. The method of implementation of the present law was a mistake.
Was there just not enough preparation?
Not enough preparation, not enough direction from the state to the probate judges' offices, not sound guidance in how to implement the system.
The Criminal Justice Department uses tag receipts from the Revenue Department to update their computers on who has and hasn't bought tags.
Well, there are only 3 counties in the state that are complying with this. The rest are running from 7 days to 3 months behind. And as a result of their failure to comply with the law, there are 2 lawsuits against the state of Alabama where the wrong person was arrested because of inaccurate information on the computers.
In my travels around the state, I have found a variety of systems in effect among the varying counties when there should be only one system.
Both Blaylock and Lewis say their 21-member committee has reached at least one major accomplishment. It's brought about communication between the departments, and it's also drafted a new revised 5-year tag system, a system we'll take a look at tomorrow night. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
A job action by most housing authority maintenance workers entered its second day today. They're calling the action a strike, but officials say it's a work slowdown because the workers haven't been recognized as a union by the housing authority. Executive Director of the authority, J.C. Miller Jr., says the 5-member Board of Commissioners is debating the matter now, and there's no idea when a decision will be reached. Spokesman Robert Hill says the 70 men want better insurance coverage, a pay hike, and a more detailed job classification system. Executive Director Miller says he wants to help work out the problems, but it's time for the two groups to sit down and talk.
Seen no list of any grievance or any problem whatsoever.
What do you think the problems are?
In my opinion right now, it's a lack of communication. Undoubtedly there are some problems, or they would not have this work stoppage, but I don't know what they are. And I've made myself available, and I know that for any problem there's some sort of answer. But I do think that we would have to get together to discuss it. Sooner or later, something would have to be done about resuming our normal operation at our maintenance department.
Miller can recommend that the board meet earlier than its scheduled July 3rd meeting to take up the matter, but he says he has no plans to do so. So while the board decides what role, if any, the union will play in the operations of the Housing Authority's maintenance department, the maintenance employees say they won't work. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
That the City of Tuskegee's application for a community development grant in approximately 650 families of people will be involved directly in this particular project. But the entire community will be benefited because the quality of living will be raised in that particular community up to the standards of living in other communities, as well as we're going to try to use minority and local contractors in the work that will be involved here. This will create additional jobs for our people.
"56 individuals and 14 teams are in competition for the state high school golf championship. The teams here are either winners or runners-up from the 7 district tournaments held last weekend at various locations around the state. The 8 lowest scoring individuals from district competition also qualify for the state tournament. After today's first round, Berry High School of Birmingham is leading the team division. They have a total of 298, 3 shots ahead of University Military School of Mobile and Tuscaloosa High School. Jeff Davis of Montgomery is next at 303, 5 shots behind Berry. The individual leader is Bill Anthony of Andalusia High School, who shot a 68 today.
I did pretty good today. I didn't make a lot of mistakes, you know.
You're the only one from Andalusia who made it up here, is that right?
Right, that's right.
How the course player realizes your first time that you played here before? How do you like the course?
I like it a lot. It's in, real good shape, you know.
And you're planning to go to Auburn. How did that all come about?
Well, my brother's up there, and I'm just decided to go there and hope to play good golf.
The second and final round of the tournament will be played tomorrow at Lagoon Park. James Spann, WSFA TV Sports.
Yeah, I was called at home this afternoon, and with the changes on the Major League Club, it affects the whole organization. And we're going to have Darrell Brown come in town now, and Darrell will take my spot on the roster, which is, in all true sense of minor league baseball, it's much better because I'm never going to play in the big leagues, and Darrell has the ability to play in the big leagues, and we should get him the opportunity to play baseball here on the AA level. So I'm not upset. This is only about my 4th or 5th time I've been released and called back. I don't know. I was kidding people last night in the dugout or in the clubhouse after the game that I'm going to call a press conference and announce my retirement after my one hit on the ear. But it looks like it happened. So
you've got